Hello everybody! It's time for Littleland. I hope you're excited. I'm very sorry that there were no videos last week. Things got busy. As you can see, my little shelf that's usually behind me is empty now because we're moving house. But after the move is all done and I've got my space all set up, I'll show you guys what it looks like and we'll do a house tour. Does that sound good? Sounds good to me. We are up to chapter... Yet again, I haven't checked what chapter we're up to. We're up to chapter 15. Just to let you guys know that after this chapter's done, we're gonna have a little bit of a break. There's 30 chapters total in Littleland. So this is, think of it as like an intermission, and I'll be back to posting Littleland videos soon, but it's just gonna be, you'll just have to bear with me. It's a really busy time in my life right now, and as much as it pains me to say it, I just don't have time to write, film and edit a chapter a week. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna record and write a couple of them during this break time, and then I'll have a little bit of a backlog so I'm a bit more on top of things. And then after we've moved house, the break will be over. Okay? Okay. Vanessa was too startled to dwell on the humiliation involved in noticing Miss Mia's presence. "I'm not angry with you, honey," she said, straightening to a stand. "I'm proud of you." She crossed the room and crouched next to them. "From what I saw, you were a very good girl during your spanking." There was the humiliation. Vanessa flushed scarlet. "How long were you watching?" stammered Vanessa, attempting to remember what she had said in her well-spanked and slightly delirious state. "Long enough, baby girl." Miss Mia reached out and tapped Vanessa's nose, causing it to crinkle as she smiled. "Long enough to know that you were very brave." The doctor nodded his head and hummed his agreement, a lock of dark hair flopping over his shoulder. "She was." He continued to rub slow, even circles on the little girl's back. Vanessa looked up at him, smiling shyly, blushing still. He gave... "Did you hear that bird?" Vanessa looked up at him, smiling shyly, blushing still. He gave her a soft smile in return. "I'll let you two finish up in here, okay?" said Miss Mia, straightening up. "I'll see you soon, honey." She leant in and placed a soft, sweet kiss on Vanessa's forehead. Vanessa felt a pang of anxiety once the afterglow of the kiss had faded. She looked up at Dr. Gilbert, who regarded her gently. "So, little miss," he began, leaning back slightly in his seat, "what did we learn today?" "No doing dangers," said Vanessa immediately. "No trees, no tall things, no running away." Dr. Gilbert nodded sagely. "Exactly. Keep going, please. You're doing very well." No talking back," said Vanessa emphatically. "And we talk to each other with respect." Vanessa looked at her toes as she contemplated the next lesson she'd learned. "Gotta use my words if I have a feeling." "Respect and communication. Two very important things, little miss," nodded Dr. Gilbert. "And I don't get to make decisions. That's your job." "Very good, little one. Very good indeed." Vanessa relaxed against the doctor's broad chest. He stroked her hair and murmured small praises. She thought it strange that she could be comforted by this man who was causing her to wail moments earlier, and glanced upwards. His resultant smile was warm and lazy, and it filled her stomach with shy, satisfied bubbles. Dr. Gilbert wasn't cruel, nor was he unfair. She had misbehaved and was disciplined fairly for it. Perhaps this was why she felt contented. She still felt some semblance of foreboding about the doctor, but the initial fear she had felt was long gone. All that remained inside her was childlike submission and the deep urge to take a nap. I think Mickey was right, sighed Vanessa, dreamily, letting her eyes close. Oh? Asked the doctor, tilting his head to the left and regarding her with a soft amusement. Yeah, you're not scary, she mumbled, followed by a little yawn. Her eyes remained closed. Dr. Gilbert chuckled gently. I am glad to hear it. Vanessa looked around the room when she awoke, slightly startled. The nursery was dimly lit, but she could make out Miss Mia's silhouette against her cubicle wall. She sat in the armchair. A small paperback book sat unopened on her floral-patterned lap. An involuntary smile crept across Vanessa's face as she registered her caregiver's presence. Well, hello, sleepy girl, said Miss Mia, rising from the chair and setting her book aside. She strode to Vanessa's side and swiftly retrieved her from the crib. Vanessa didn't answer verbally, merely pressed her face into Miss Mia's blouse. Someone's had a big day, haven't they? Mumbled Vanessa, shyness washing over her. She didn't particularly want to address the events of that day, given the state of her bottom. Throbbed inside her diaper, a humbling reminder of her misbehavior. Miss Mia placed a large palm on the back of the little girl's head and stroked her hair. I'm sorry, mumbled Vanessa, her face still buried in Miss Mia's blouse. It's okay, honey, she said, turning from Vanessa's cubicle and striding down the hallway. But I broke your big rule, said Vanessa, her voice catching in her throat as she looked timidly upwards. And you've been disciplined, baby girl, said Miss Mia, continuing down the hallway and entering the dining hall. But, no buts, darling, she said, giving Vanessa a series of soft pats on her diapered bottom. Vanessa winced, the skin still sore from her spanking. Except this one, chuckled Miss Mia. Vanessa giggled in spite of herself, and the concern began to disappear from her face. You did something naughty. You've been disciplined, and that's all there is to it. Miss Mia leaned down and placed a light kiss on Vanessa's brow. Vanessa gave Miss Mia a wobbly smile, relief flooding her belly. And now, it's time for dinner. Sat in her high chair with a bib fastened around her neck, Vanessa gazed about the room. The walls of the dining room were emblazoned with nursery rhyme characters. Jack and Jill walked uphill, hand in hand, unaware of the danger set to befall them in their rhyme. The dish and the spoon gazed up at the cow, surrounded by stars. Miss Muffet sat happily munching in a corner, the spider nowhere to be seen. A large wooden table took up the majority of the room. Matching high chairs surrounded it, and all but one was currently occupied. Piper sat to the right of Vanessa, Frank and Danny to the left. Only Aidan remained absent. Piper wriggled impatiently in her chair, stopping only when Ethan appeared at her side to stare at her with a mixture of amusement and warning. She grinned cheekily at him, but ceased her squirming. Vanessa and Piper shared a sober smile, relieved to be done with the less pleasant parts of the day. I just want to know why you'd think it'd be a good idea to climb a tree, said Frank, breaking the silence and drawing a less than pleased expression from Piper. Aren't you the one who's constantly telling us they're always watching? Vanessa's stomach started to form knots. She didn't want the others knowing why she'd tried to run away from her appointment. I am Francois, said Piper, in a faux prim tone, straightening in her high chair. I cannot possibly think what must have come over me. She grinned conspiratorially at Vanessa, who realized her secret was safe. She relaxed visibly and returned the expression. But, began Frank, and was silenced when Danny deployed a swift tap to his arm. Don't, said Danny mildly, and Frank glared. Frank attempted to respond, but was cut off when Mickey appeared with a stack of melamine bowls, which he placed on the tray of each high chair. Boys, be nice. Yeah, Frank, be nice, growled Piper.
crowed.
Crowed Piper. Piper, you be nice too. Piper lowered her head when Mickey fixed her with a particularly stern expression, an uncharacteristically dark blush colouring her cheeks. Everyone should be nice, came Miss Emily's voice as she entered the room, Aiden in her arms. Aiden's copper hair was cowlicked and swept into a crest, not unlike that of a cockatoo. He looked freshly awoken, a confused look in his hooded eyes as he was lowered into the remaining high chair. He winced as his bottom came into contact with the hard wood. I think you all are anyway. Frank remained silent, glowering at his bowl. Danny rolled his eyes. Aiden is nice, said Miss Emily, placing a hand on his unkempt head. Danny is nice, and Frank is nice too, she declared. Piper is nice, and so is Vanessa, she said, beaming around the table at the little ones. Mickey, are you nice? Mickey, still bustling about the table with cutlery and glasses, made a show of thinking about the question. Yes, he said, finally, laying down the last fork on Vanessa's tray. I think so. Gil, are you nice? Vanessa nodded her head heartily, then blushing heavily as she realized he'd noticed. He smiled indulgently at her before he took a seat at the table. I'm not sure. Perhaps. Mia, are you nice? Vanessa nodded emphatically at her caregiver, who was taking a seat beside her high chair. I try to be, she said. Emily, I know for a fact that you're nice. Miss Emily beamed at her colleague as she took her seat beside Aiden. There we have it. We're all nice. Dinner was bolognese, atop dinosaur-shaped noodles. Predictably, more sauce ended up on Aiden's clothes than in his mouth where it belonged. Vanessa hadn't felt all that hungry, but found that she was ravenous as she began to eat. She devoured the entire bowl in a matter of minutes. Frank, still sulking from the earlier exchange, picked at his food until a sharp expression from the doctor compelled him to empty his bowl. Satisfied, and with full bellies, the little ones were carried from the dining room and into what appeared to be a lounge. Several couches lined the walls, and a patchwork of blankets had been laid out all over the floor. The television was turned on, and they were set down in front of a cartoon show featuring some form of anthropomorphic bear. Vanessa laid her head on one of the many pillows that had been scattered across the floor and attempted to focus on the screen. As hard as she tried, she couldn't summon the attention necessary to focus on the plot. From her spot on the floor, she could see directly out the window. The sun was cresting over the mountains in the distance, their white-capped peaks glinting in the orange-pink glow. Miss Mia, who sat on one of the adjacent couches, caught her eye. Vanessa sat up and pointed out the window. Would you like a closer look? She asked in a low voice, so as to not disturb the others. Vanessa nodded. Her attempt at secrecy was fruitless, however, and the others nodded with as much fervour as Vanessa had. Miss Mia chuckled softly and motioned for the little ones to follow her across the room. Miss Mia lifted the little ones one by one onto the couch that sat below the window. The group crowded around and craned their necks to take in the view. From this closer position, Vanessa was able to see the ocean. By this point, the sun had reached the horizon and had begun to sink slowly beneath the waves. What's that? Asked Aiden, pointing to the middle distance. Down by the shore? Asked Miss Mia, orienting her head to match Aiden's eyeline. That's a boat. Aiden gasped loudly, with unbridled joy. The boat! The boat from the brochure! Miss Mia shushed him gently, still smiling. The very same, she said, nodding. We'll get to go for a ride on it soon. When? Asked Frank, with just a hair too much enthusiasm. He sobered quickly, attempting to hide his hopeful expression. Very soon, honey. There was no hiding the sparkle that appeared in his eyes. It might be a bit too dark now, but if you look over there, you might be able to see a cabin on the mountaintop, said Miss Mia. Vanessa made no attempt to hide her hope. It had long been a dream of hers to one day visit the snow. "Do we get to go there?" she asked. "I'm not sure, darling," said Miss Mia. "It depends." "On what?" asked Aiden, who fairly bounced with excitement. "On if you're good or not," she said. "We only bring the very best little ones to the mountain." Miss Mia allowed the group to gaze out at the park and ask questions for a few more minutes before shepherding them back to the blankets for some quiet time. As she lay down in her nest of blankets, Vanessa smiled to herself. Her eyes grew heavy, and she let her lids droop closed. And for the very first time since her arrival, Vanessa felt excited for the adventures to come. And that's the end of chapter 15 and the end of part 1 of Littleland. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye everybody.